Business etiquette gives people the upper hand in networking, in dealing with others, in reputation beyond the people who know them, even gives them a level of polish that wins the confidence of their colleagues. Someone can have the best expertise and training, but the ability to make others feel comfortable and have social interactions that leave both sides with their dignity intact is actually more vital to success. And in today's fast-paced work culture, with a pandemic limiting most of our interactions to online for over a year, we are collectively losing sight of how to interact with others. However, it's a choice to learn and continually practice etiquette. You don't need to be on all the time, but with some effort each day, you'll find it gets easier and comes more naturally. And it actually enhances the quality of your everyday life. Most of us have been taught some form of etiquette and manners early in our lives. Remember all those times you were told to behave? When I was young, it was my grandmother on my mom's side. Every weekend, my grandparents would take my brothers and I to church at St. Mike's Cathedral, and then we'd have lunch with their friends. I was a tomboy, so I was always fighting and wrestling with my brothers, while she was doing her best to make sure us kids showed grace while we're eating and minding our manners. She taught us that even if we want to punch a sibling, by not punching them, we have a better chance of staying close, and also as we grow up, having better relationships. Whether that turned out that way, who knows? But I only later realized that although we were learning rules about how to behave, how we behave actually affected how we think and feel. It's through manners and etiquette that we try to contribute to a philosophy of graceful and generous conduct. This philosophy is not just a hollow ornament added to what you do or how you appear, but how you live in your day-to-day, working towards the creation of a kinder world. So what is etiquette? It means ticket or label for identification in French. The meaning took a few turns over 200 years, but eventually in the 18th century, English speakers adopted the word in a specific way that meant protocols in the order of precedence and behavior of those who appeared in court. So now etiquette is used as a label that you're educated, raised well, you're polite or cultured and whatnot. As to why it matters, a Harvard-Stanford study found that success in the workplace and life is 85% social skills and only 15% technical skills. And you can probably think of, where you spend most of your time. It's usually like building skills, building things you can do, but usually social skills will be your edge in the end. Basically, this means what you already know at Pixel Dreams: EQ matters. A higher emotional intelligence enables us to better connect with people, respond to them, and generally just be liked. EQ enables us to have an understanding and compassion towards others as you communicate. And ultimately, when someone with high EQ enters a room, they know how to act and respond to make people feel comfortable. And in turn, people want to work with them more. These people know how to adjust and readjust to every setting. And there's often a misconception that EQ is something you either have or you don't. I disagree. It's something that can be learned. Some people have more advantages in that than others, and that's why we have this presentation today. By following these protocols of etiquette, you can just better show respect to others. And as a side note, this presentation is mostly focused on North American business etiquette, with only a few references to international as examples. So first impressions. Trust is built on first impressions. It's important that you control your first impression as much as you can. Before you speak to someone, chances are you interact through email or online, and you look each other up on Google or social media. So maybe if you have time, look yourself up on Google. When's the last time you did that? What do you see? And what kind of signals does that result give off? If it's not the right signal, you can try to clean up your Google results, but maybe create a Google alert for your name to stay on top of any changes. And why do first impressions matter? Well, would you trust meeting a doctor with your life if it looks like the person on the left or the person on the right? First impressions can make or break trust. Just like we expect professionals to be on time, when they're not, it shows a lack of respect for us. And as a client, we value professionalism, which is why we want a doctor who takes their career seriously. The doctor on the left clearly looks the part, prepared, competent. The person on the right looks like you caught them, at lunch or something. So while there are many supposed measures of how fast people can make an impression of you, there's a famous "you have 7 seconds." The author of the business etiquette book my presentation is mostly based on outlines 7 things within the realm of your control. So physical placement, your facial control, your personal presentation, your posture, your voice, body language, and charisma. Body language can take a whole another presentation. There's a lot of interpretations around that, but there are some general normalized interpretations of body language, and it's quite interesting. But you actually say a lot more with your body than you do with your voice or even your face sometimes. So the next thing I'm going to cover is greetings. So now that you made a first impression and you have some outline of things to think about when you're making that first impression, showing consideration for and interest in those you meet while maintaining a pleasant tone is the most important goal of greeting. When greeting someone, such as a client or a visitor, or when a senior executive enters your work area, always try to stand up. This demonstrates that they have your full attention and respect. If it's impossible to stand, lean forward and slightly rise, then apologize after the greeting for not being able to stand. There are some exceptions though. You do not need to constantly greet coworkers who are coming and going frequently and are just passing through and they're not coming to visit you. And also if someone's injured or movement impaired or elderly, they are not expected to stand up to greet. And although we focus on North American greetings, you may know there's different greetings around the world, such as like in Japan, pressing your arms to the side and bowing from the waist. Indian, we put our hands together in a praying motion. New Zealand, they rub noses. So yeah, just wanted to do a little coverage on greetings. And now for eye contact. It's important to maintain steady eye contact at least 40 to 60% of the time. When you're talking to someone in business, too much can come across as intimidating or even staring. Focus your eyes on the space above the nose and between the eyes unless you need to lip read. Think of the last time someone looked directly in your eyes actually and was focused on you. It's kind of hard to forget when someone who commands respect or attention focus their eyes directly at you. You probably never forget that moment because eye contact is one of the most powerful weapons used by politicians and movie stars. It's a huge source of charisma and it makes the person being looked at feel like they're the only person in the world. And of course, there are some gazes that are not appropriate for the workplace, so I put this little infographic there. One thing I'm going to cover for sure is the handshake. So there's a lot of talk around handshakes in business, but the firmness of a handshake can exude confidence, gentleness expression while giving a handshake with eye contact can remind someone that they're safe and in good hands. There's some steps for what to do in a handshake. So always stand up if you can. Extend your right hand to shake the other person's right hand at 30 degrees. No matter what gender of the hand you're shaking, give a firm but not aggressive squeeze. 2 pumps for business, 3 for social, and if the person you're shaking doesn't let go, just go with it until they're done. Don't try to pull away. And also make eye contact and continue until the shake is done. And that usually will stop them from shaking too much if you keep your eye contact. And also try to keep your cold drinks if you're at a social outing on your left hand, so your right hand's ready to shake and it's not cold and clammy when shaking hands. And if someone offers their left hand, it might be due to an injury or something, so just be ready to shift. And now for a few don'ts. Don't put your hand out with your fingers pointing down. We're not here to kiss hands. Don't keep one hand in your pocket. It's like you're hiding something. Don't put one hand over the other person's hand unless you want to assert authority. And don't crush the other person's hand. No Terminator handshakes. Most of us who have a European or South American background probably is familiar with this, which is the air kiss. This is where you lean in and this is a business one, not the personal one, but you lean in with your arms and elbow, you touch cheeks and you kiss the air, not the face, the air. Depending on the culture, country, or how much the person likes you, there may be more kisses or you do both slides. And for some countries, there's a lot of rules up for debate about who kisses where and why and how. So I just wanted to put this for entertainment, just so you could see that there's a lot of rules that are also never followed. I worked in Brazil. There was a lot of different types of kissing between people, and I couldn't keep track of what's the rules. So I just followed whatever someone else is doing versus initiating it myself. And this is not, again, this is not to be confused as like fête which is for family, friends, and close colleagues. But if in doubt, actually, cheek kissing and hugging should be reserved for friends and family. There's an order, actually. So to introductions, there's an order to how this is done when you're first meeting someone or introducing people together. And it should be followed to show respect. If you're unsure of who to introduce to who and what order, always think, who should I show respect to first? Who you show respect to is who you're introducing people to. So the most important person, so Mr. President may introduce you to Mr. Darcy. Or the most senior person in age, grandma, may I please introduce you to my colleague Erica. And then gender, if everyone's the same rank, ladies first, even though now we don't really care about gender, but in most business settings, ladies first if we can't figure out what the order is. If you're introducing two CEOs or two clients, show respect to who you knew longer if you're unsure who to do first, who to introduce to. And look at each person as you say their name and say their name clearly. You can also say, may I present in place of introduce. And dignitaries can also have their title instead of their name. So if you don't know if someone has already met, you can say, do you know, to avoid that awkward, not sure if they already met. So, Erica, do you know my grandma? Even though I probably would have known that. And you also might have seen on TV and movies where people bounce names like a ball, like, Nikita, Michael, Nikita, shake hands. Like that can come across as very rude and uncaring for both parties involved. Don't command people to shake hands either. They're not kids. So the other reason it's just really hard for people to do anything beyond, okay, hi, if you just say their names. If there's a lot of people in the room and you can't remember everyone or it would take long, start with the highest ranking person first and allow everyone to introduce themselves. For example, Dr. Huang, may I please introduce you to the new team of residents? And then everyone can introduce themselves and you don't have to do it all yourself. With married couples, they take equal status. So if you're a manager and their partner at an event, you introduce both of them. For example, Michiru and Haruka, may I please introduce you to our new associate, Hotaru. And always share some information. May I please is the formal way to introduce people. However, names alone is not enough to start a conversation without you. Give people a conversational clue. For example, Trevor, may I introduce you to our new advertising director, Lily, who just moved here from New York. Lily has been the director for our sales division and oversees our teams in Toronto. This gives them a jumping point to start a conversation without you. And when you are introduced to someone, you can just respond with hello, good morning, afternoon, evening, and their name. If it's someone in your age group or equal rank, like in the previous example, you can just say, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Landon. Repeating the person's name proves you were listening, and it helps with your memory. I'm totally bad at this too, but repeating their name in conversation to imprint it in your memory and saying it in your head 3 times while looking at them tends to help. Remembering names is very difficult, and if you're in a jam, introducing someone else to the mystery person might make them supply their name. So if all else fails, just apologize and say, I'm sorry, it's good to see you again, but I can't recall your name. Will you please remind me? And just take the L, If someone's name is difficult for you to pronounce, ask the person to repeat the name with, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name properly. Please tell me the correct way to say it. Then repeat the name back as best you can out of respect. Anyone with a hard to pronounce name can be self-conscious, so you should always work to pronounce it correctly. So you're probably wondering what this is a picture of. If your name is difficult, make it memorable and easy to learn with an association you choose. So for example, my maiden name is Indian, and I would tell people it's Khosla, like the salad. And you can correct people gently if they get your name wrong. So My name is pronounced many different ways, but the correct way is Khosla. Just put people at ease. So for navigating business events, here are some tips. Make your presence known to key people and your peers. End conversations with a sign-off, like "it's nice seeing you." Introduce someone to someone else before moving on to other people. So just lean away and say, like, open your body language and say, "I must be going. I enjoyed talking with you. Look forward to seeing you again." And if you spent too long with someone, say, "Let's go meet some new people," or "Let's talk to some new people." And here's some things you shouldn't do, though we are all guilty of them sometimes. Tell jokes that involve sensitive topics. Monopolize one person's time. You have to let them mingle. Sticking to one spot with just your coworkers and friends. Saying, "We should get together sometime," and then never do it. Or rushing to the bar or food without introducing yourself to others first. And another tip that I learned kind of the hard way, because I really like food, but try not to eat too much or arrive after having eaten something, so you can spend time talking at the start instead of stuffing your face, because it's really hard to talk and eat at the same time. The stuff gets in your teeth, gets in your mouth, and it's just really hard to converse. And this is specific to business events. If it's friends, do what you want, but in business, the time that you have to network is usually quite important. So this is covering typical business events with drinks and food provided, assuming everyone's like standing and mingling. I won't be covering how to dine or something like that, because that's another longer topic. The way you sit, stand, and move in business also shows others how you are powerful, poised, and confident. There are 3 cornerstones of posture that make it easy to remember. So your chin, shoulders, and your legs. And here's a posture on the right between 2 friends, but you could tell one's leaning in and listening. It's hard to keep good posture when sitting. Of course, in this pandemic, we've been sitting for most of our meetings because we get relaxed. We actually eventually slouch. So here are some things to keep yourself from slouching. So don't have arm rests. Using them, you begin to relax. Don't let your back touch the back of the chair. Be 1.5 inch or 1.5 hands away from the table. So don't let your stomach or your chest touch the table. And no elbows on the table. I know this is a very American thing. Don't put your elbows on the table. And make sure that no matter what position you're in, the bottoms of your feet are touching the floor. Like, don't lift your feet or put them elsewhere. You'll start to relax. And don't fidget. I know a lot of people love to do this. In almost every office, there's someone who's like shaking their foot or like playing with something or swirling around in their chair. But it does look very unfocused and unprofessional, unless you just want to come off that way and show that you're relaxed. But generally, it's not looked at as someone who is very focused. And although today's presentation is gender neutral, here are some sitting positions that are used by the most powerful men and women out there in order to look polite. So you'll probably recognize these. For women, the common denominator between all of them is that when crossed at the knee, your knees and ankles are together or touching. And for men, your legs should be hip width apart and heels on the floor. No manspreading into other people's personal space. Has anyone ever had to give a toast or listen to some? The best ones are short. They have jokes around a reference to the past, something about the current moment, and something that has yet to come. If you have to make a toast on the fly, use the past, present, future technique. For example, "Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to my FRIducation. I'd like to take a moment and raise a glass to all of you at Pixel Dreams for supporting me for the past 7 years. I'm so delighted you all took the time to join this presentation on business etiquette, which is the present. And I look forward to more successful years working together with you all, future. And I hope this presentation can give you ideas for how to tackle situations like a pro. To Pixel Dreams. Cheers." This technique works in almost every situation, especially if you're put on the spot. And here are some tips. So normally the host or the most senior person toasts. And when they do it is at the beginning of the evening or after everyone's arrived. And to get everyone's attention, you can just call everyone, "Excuse me." And if you're not loud enough, have someone with loud voice do it if there's no microphone. Don't clink glasses. I know everyone likes to do that, but it can damage today's glassware, which is not very tough. And Only stand if you have to give a toast to multiple tables. You don't have to stand unless your table's very big and you need to project your voice. And if one person was honored, they can choose to do a thank you toast back. For example, like if someone says, to Cal, the audience can also say, repeat back to Cal. And then unless it's on brand for your company, and chances are it might not be for most places, but try not to turn the toast into a roast as much as there's a temptation to do so. In business, it's always about showing respect within a hierarchy. That's the only hierarchy we have. No matter what age people are, it's the corporate hierarchy. And we use this to recognize seniority and determine who wants to show who respect. These rules will help anyone navigating a new work environment, working with clients, or visiting clients. It doesn't mean you don't have to show respect to someone who's lower in the hierarchy. You should always show respect to everyone. But if you're wondering who to introduce to who you should defer to, follow the corporate hierarchy. And please after you is a way to remember these rules. So the people who are more junior in rank are the host should open doors or walk after the others when entering or going somewhere. When ordering food, usually the waiters will order from the women first, but you can say, point to the most senior person there and say they can begin. When paying, whoever's hosted pays, unless it's a client who invited you to their gathering. And elevators, it's hard to be polite, and especially that we have smaller elevators usually than the group that we're bringing up, but usually you try to, it's like you're the elevator manager for them. You get the elevator for them, let them go in first and let them go out first, and take care of people so that no one is left behind. The idea is to show them that you're taking care of them. With revolving doors, it's easiest to do that your guests go first, so you take the brunt of pushing that door for them. Actions speak louder than words, as we mentioned. So the impact of a message, according to a body language researcher, is 7% verbal, 38% vocal, and 55% nonverbal. Have you ever seen someone at work respond to a tricky situation, diffuse a tense moment, or ensure people felt understood? It's likely that they're great communicators and are hyper-aware of nonverbal cues. Reading facial expressions is a crucial set of business skills and enables you to better respond to any situation. The key is when you're speaking and someone's listening to you, watch their eyes and mouth at the same time. So we're gonna play a game. You all can do this in the chat and respond what you think. So imagine you're selling a car and these are the expressions of the person you're selling to. You can type out in the chat what you think the person is thinking. And in this case, the lady's eyes are pinched and her lips are pursed, which means she's skeptical and unsure and distrusting. Does anyone think of what she's thinking here? So here her eyes are open and her mouth is open. She's understanding, interested, and engaged. So she's really listening to what you're saying. Here her, oh, sorry, there's a delay in me pressing this. Here her eyes and her mouth are open. So she's understanding, she's probably nodding her head and she's taking in that information you said. And here her eyes are open, but her lips are pursed. So she wants to look like she's listening and agreeing, but she's still not trusting fully. You've probably seen this face a lot when you tell someone something they don't really want to hear. And they're like, right. Mm-hmm. So another motion we see a lot is head nods. Usually by nodding heads, we are conveying that we agree or on board with something. And a slight nod usually shows you're listening to what someone's saying. Keep in mind that for some business cultures, like in Japan, a head nod does not necessarily mean affirmative. And the same goes for the figure 8 nod in India, which kind of eludes even ourselves. We don't know what it means. Could be yes or no, or maybe. And it would take a whole nother presentation for me to go over nonverbal cues, such as body positions, but I'll limit to what is most often seen today, especially because we're mostly seen working remotely, and it's probably for the foreseen future. One thing that most of us have been doing online is gesturing a lot more than usual to exude energy. I do this a lot. It's just how I am. I like to talk with my hands. However, I recently discovered that the less you rely on those extraneous gestures, the more confident you appear. You'd be surprised how a small change of posture or a small gesture can change how people perceive you. It takes a lot of discipline to listen to others and hear what they're saying. And this allows us to ask the right questions and find common ground to open up the conversation, especially when we're meeting someone for the first time. And also be alert of when a conversation is ending. End with a handshake or say, I enjoyed speaking with you, rather than just drifting away. So, not sure if this is visible. Do you see a video here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, in this video, I'm going to put the volume up for a second because it might not pick up. So in this video, it's from the movie Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, where two best friends hope to impress their high school bullies by dressing up as businesswomen. And you can probably tell me after this video what gave them away.
All right. Now just remember, from this point on, you are sophisticated, educated, successful career women. Right. Okay. This underwear is totally riding up my butt crack. Yeah. Hello. We need something to go. Okay. Do you have some sort of businesswoman special? Come again? Well, we're businesswomen. Yeah, from LA. And some places have like a lunch special for businesswomen.
We don't have anything like that.
Well, then why don't you just give us 2 burgers and fries and Diet Coke because we're in a hurry. We're doing Tucson later for a business thing,
What kind of business you in?
Okay, so can anyone tell me what gave them away on that video? Feel free to speak up.
The way their tone raised at the end of their sentence. Please.
I said the overuse of the word business.
Well, most of the tells were in the dialogue, the scripted dialogue. Very, very deliberately, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, so they didn't even know what business they were in. The way they carried themselves, their facial expressions, and as mentioned, the biggest giveaway was the way they spoke. A strong, unwavering voice in business is pretty indispensable. From how you speak to your tone, finding the right balance can take practice. Everyone sounds the way they sound. Like, I'll never sound, awesome like, President Obama or something, but I have to work with what I got. So try watching a recording of yourself and identify if there's areas you could work on. And this is a list of common areas to work on. So speaking too fast or too slow, too loud or too soft, mumbling and stumbling through tongue twisters instead of enunciating, which I do a lot. Trailing your voice at the end, the sentence, or going up to squeaky pitch, and speaking in monotone. Try to take pauses and show 2 points of inflection per sentence. Speaking over others or too much. And filler words like and slang. You notice that Romy said, yeah, hello, instead of yes. So there's also some words you should try to remove from your vocabulary. As Canadians, we say this first word a little too much and we misuse it. Instead, just offer apologies only when you mean it. And can I ask a question comes off very submissive. You can try, I'd like to add, or just ask the question. Just is another one you might hear a lot. Can I just, I was just hoping, I just need. It reduces the importance of your statement or request. To be honest with you, I say that one a lot. It implies that I'm not always honest, even though for me it's like a filler statement. And this one, so many of us, especially me, are guilty of it. No problem. It actually implies a negative to thank you. So if someone says thank you, just say you're welcome, because it assumes that there was a problem for you. So say my pleasure or you're welcome, and that works. And I won't get too far into public speaking specifically. I'm not an expert in that, but here are some tips to exude more confidence in speaking. Preparing. So be over-prepared, you're never under-prepared. Know your audience. So adjust your presentation for your particular audience, and know the playing field. Are you working with a laptop? Are you in a conference room that you need to test the tech, like the mic, your slides, the videos? Are you familiar with the room layout? Do you know which positions of power to speak from are best in that room for that audience? And breathing deeply, doing breathing exercises before you present really helps for you to focus on your breath. And now, dealing with bad etiquette. The polite way to deal with bad etiquette is very easy. Just ignore it. Correcting someone, especially in front of others, is considered very bad etiquette. The only exception is if you're a manager, HR, or instructing a team and it's expected in that moment. Do not correct anyone unless they've asked for help, and because otherwise it makes them, like, it ruins their dignity too. So if you're confronted with a bad etiquette in a tense situation, the aim is always to be polite, firm, and assertive, and do not take anything like your disagreements personally. So when you're disagreeing, just disagree carefully. If you're stating an opinion or fact, state it as such to keep things diplomatic. Let them know they have a right to their feelings, but you disagree. For example, I disagree because, or I don't think that's true because. Don't be judgmental with remarks, like that's ridiculous, or using sarcasm, even though it's very easy to do so. Don't let things boil over. I find if you let things boil over, you start to get a little angry on the inside. So address issues up front and politely before you're so angry that you can't think straight. Always have a suggestion or solutions ready when addressing the issue. And also don't hit send when you're angry. Make a draft, don't send it, revisit it when things cool down for you, and edit it. Etiquette is actually a lot about editing everything you do in your behavior and how you present yourself. So the more editing you do, the compilation of all those edits kind of make a totally different picture than how you would have been in your unedited state. And avoid passive-aggressive behavior replies. You've probably experienced someone saying, fine, or I don't care, when they really aren't and they really do care. Another example is, here's a situation where someone goes, hey, is that project going to be done within the hour, when everyone knows it's done in an hour, like it needs to be done in the hour? So maybe ask questions leading to conversations with constructive intent. For example, our presentation's in an hour. Is there anything I can do to help? And if someone takes that as rude, maybe just let them be and let them deal with it themselves. And also never raise your voice. Keep your cool. If someone's too hot-headed to listen, let them cool off and pick up the conversation when the situation has calmed down. For example, I don't believe this is the right time to pursue this topic. Let's continue the discussion at a more opportune time or a different place. And finally, know when to let it go. If a compromise is not working, you may simply just have to respect each other's feelings. And, I don't agree. I still see you as a friend, but we just disagree on this one thing. And don't hold it against each other. And also, etiquette can actually be used as a shield. This is a secret weapon. If someone is rude to you and you continue to be polite, they would get increasingly uncomfortable. Whereas if you responded to their rudeness with more rudeness and it leads to escalation that's never ending, that person would actually be smug about pushing your buttons. So continuing to be polite usually makes them so uncomfortable. So that's a secret weapon that you can try. So confidence levels can change in the moment, yet it's what we want to see from a business person. While self-esteem can take months or years to build, confidence can be learned, emulated, controlled, and portrayed situationally. When you feel at ease in a situation, in turn, you're putting others at ease. So here are some tips on how to exude confidence. So packaging yourself. So what you're wearing, what you're carrying should be polished. I find that people are a bit insecure when there's little things about what they're doing or wearing that's adding up to them feeling a bit insecure in the moment. Use your voice. It should be powerful and controlled, but not too loud. Build rapport. So building close relationships with people you do business with allows you to feel more comfortable with them, and it's more easy to work with them versus feeling nervous all the time. And understanding what sparks you. List the things that you want to be more confident in and work on them. Organizing yourself, which is similar to preparing, so it just helps you think clearly in the moment and your mind can know where to reach out for something and be more efficient instead of feeling disorganized and being caught, unprepared. Emulating others. So this is not my style, but I find it's really good for some to watch and be inspired by those that they admire and channel the same energy. But I'm more the person who says, like, emulate yourself. Like, try to like figure out what for you works versus like copying, a famous, like a Steve Jobs or something. I feel like there's so many Steve Jobs, similes out there nowadays in Silicon Valley. And practice. You can only do this when you're in a specific situation. It won't work. It's like a muscle. If you have this muscle and you don't use it until you have to overuse it, it's not going to work. So you have to kind of fake it or put yourself in situations where you have to be confident, and then it just comes naturally. To exude authority, you have to use your voice. So strong and loud will command attention. And expressing powerful body language. Your posture and stance will tell people you're in charge without even saying anything. You probably notice if someone enters a room, they seem to be in charge, but you don't know who they are. Usually it's their body language that tells you this. And then talk more, but only when relevant. Being completely silent goes against you, but talking too much can also go against you. But when you do speak, and you use facts, objective statistics, or stories to make your point, and it's memorable, and it's relevant, people will have this impression of you that you only use your time wisely and you think a little bit more deeply before you share information. And make decisions. Not being able to make a decision can be seen as a lack of authority or ability to have authority. So be confident in your choices and express why. And yes, get rid of fear. So easy, huh? Just get rid of it. Actually, if you fear doing something, you're the only person preventing yourself from achieving those goals. So you have to work towards that. We're getting towards the end, so how to exude charisma. So maintaining a positive attitude. So this is something that I think about a lot. Have you ever walked to an office, you go to the elevator and you're stuck with an executive with like a really angry face and you wonder, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Do they hate me? It's really important to, even if you had a bad morning, a bad meeting, to show up with a smile, because people are paying attention to the emotions that you're kind of exuding. And you have to create a likable persona. People like to spend time with others who are friendly, sincere, and happy. I don't know anyone who says, hey, I want to spend time with this like really negative person who hates other people and isn't happy. And then change negative perceptions. So this is if it makes sense. If you hear feedback, for example, someone said, oh, Sheila doesn't speak up enough. Try to work at it, but don't work at every single thing you hear. Sometimes it might not be the truth, but if you hear a trend of feedback, maybe there's some truth in it. And yes, overcome fear again, but don't be afraid to make mistakes in this charisma mode. And surround yourself with happy people. People who care, and if you surround yourself with people who care and are happy, you'll have an easier time being happy yourself. And that just kind of like comes out of you naturally, and then stand out humbly. You don't want to be a wallflower, but nobody likes a bragging colleague because you are a brand. Each of you has your own walking, talking, breathing billboard, your own style, skills, and personality that you present to others. That's your brand. At the same time, in business, your brand falls under the umbrella of your company's brand. So people who are on brand for a company are much more likely to get hired and promoted. And being on brand is not a function of how you present yourself, but also how you interact and communicate with your colleagues and clients. This doesn't mean you have to be a perfect employee who fits a mold. Like, if you're wondering what's on brand, it's your words, your actions, and, you know, in addition to how you present yourself, how it's aligned to the core values of the company, having a positive attitude about the company, your projects, and your team, and your company being proud to have you represent them. You're both your own ambassador, an ambassador of the company that employs you. So how you use this toolkit is up to you, but it's better to know and not need it than to need it and not know it. You'd be surprised how differently people will treat you in your personal and professional life. And yeah, if anything, just remember these 3 things. Be courteous and respectful to the people around you. It's less about what you're saying and more about how you say it. And the goal is not perfection, just practice. because you never know who's watching or listening. You can probably think of many stories where someone overheard something and someone spilled tea in a semi-public area and then word got out. It's really important to kind of think of how you present yourself anytime. And times change, etiquette rules might change, but the need for good manners never changes. Whether you're a CEO or a high school graduate, everyone wins when we're just polite. Yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk, everyone.
Fire!